Ethan Blake was not a man who left things to chance. At 35, he had become one of the most powerful and calculated figures in Silicon Valley, the kind of CEO who preferred precision over improvisation, solitude over sentiment. His days were scheduled by the minute, and his private life was locked behind NDAs and clean, curated images. So when he agreed to host a birthday celebration, it wasn't out of desire. It was branding. The venue was a penthouse ballroom atop one of Los Angeles's most exclusive five-star hotels. Minimalist modern design, ivory drapes cascading from the ceiling, low lighting casting a golden hue. The guest list included tech elites, Fortune 500 executives, and just enough media influencers to generate quiet envy. Ethan had arrived 20 minutes early, of course, dressed in his signature cream-colored suit, the one he wore every birthday, tailored in Italy, pressed to perfection. The champagne had begun to flow. Jazz hummed beneath layers of controlled laughter and networking. Everything was unfolding exactly as expected. Until the girl arrived. No one saw where she came from. She wasn't on the list. She didn't belong to anyone. But there she was, standing alone in the entrance of the ballroom. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old. Her dress was plain white cotton, falling just below the knees. Her dark hair was pinned back with a single silver clip. And in both hands, she held a single cupcake with a lit candle, flame flickering in the soft, conditioned air. Her shoes tapped lightly against the marble floor as she walked with quiet confidence, unbothered by the hundreds of eyes now turning toward her. She didn't hesitate. She crossed the hall like she belonged there, straight toward Ethan Blake. He turned, puzzled by the sudden hush behind him, just in time to see her stop in front of him and look up. "You're my dad," she said. The room froze. For a heartbeat, Ethan thought it might be some bizarre publicity stunt, a social prank. He offered a cautious, diplomatic smile, but the girl remained still, unblinking. She held out a small envelope. Inside was a photocopy of a birth certificate. Father, Ethan Blake, his full legal name. He blinked twice. Folded behind the document was a letter, handwritten, edges slightly bent. He didn't read it. Not yet. He looked down at the girl. "What's your name?" "Lily," she said calmly. "My mom was Rachel Collins." Rachel. A flash of memory. Chicago. A guest lecture at a tech summit, drinks after the panel. She had asked smart questions. They'd talked for hours. A single night. No follow-up. "You're saying Rachel had a child?" "She died 3 weeks ago." There was no tremble in her voice. She had practiced this clearly, rehearsed each word. The ballroom stayed silent. Ethan's assistant hovered nearby, eyes wide, phone already in hand, waiting for a cue. But Ethan raised one finger subtly. "Not yet." He crouched slowly, meeting the girl's gaze. "Did anyone come with you?" She shook her head. "No one else." The cupcake's candle was still burning. He exhaled, feeling the eyes on him, his thoughts sprinting for logic, for control, for a plan. But something in her eyes held him still. He stood. "Let's go upstairs. We'll talk there." She nodded once, then followed him through the side corridor, away from the crowd, into the private elevator that led to his penthouse suite. The doors closed. Silence replaced the whispers of the party. Ethan looked down at her again. The cupcake was tilted slightly in her hands. "Did you make that yourself?" "I bought it. With the last $20 my mom had." He said nothing. Couldn't. The elevator rose in silence. Inside the suite, she sat on the white leather couch, legs swinging gently, the cupcake resting on the table. Ethan finally unfolded the letter. "Dear Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I never told you because I didn't want to interfere in your life. I watched you from afar. I saw what you became. I didn't want Lily to feel like a mistake. But I'm gone now, and she's all alone. Please, Even if it's just a few days, take care of her. Let her know she matters. Rachel. He lowered the letter. Lily was staring at the flame, still burning. He walked to the table, gently blew it out. She brought it for you, said a voice in his mind. Not an investor, not a favor, not a deal. A daughter. He sat beside her, still unsure of the right words. Lily, he said slowly, you're very brave. She nodded. Mom said you were brave too. She said you always did the right thing. His throat tightened. And just like that, the most controlled man in Silicon Valley found himself completely unprepared. Not for a merger, not for a lawsuit, but for the smallest voice in the room telling him the one truth he had never prepared to hear. The penthouse was sleek, sterile, and quiet. An architectural reflection of Ethan Blake himself. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Los Angeles, offering a sweeping view of lights blinking against the night. But inside, it was too quiet now, filled with the unfamiliar sound of a child's presence. Lily sat curled into one corner of the wide leather couch, a blanket draped around her shoulders. Her shoes were off, placed neatly by the door. She didn't seem scared, just tired. The kind of tired that grows slowly when a child has carried too much. Ethan stood by the kitchen island, staring at his phone screen. He'd already contacted his lawyer, left a message with family services, and forwarded the birth certificate for verification. Everything about this situation screamed delay, contain, resolve, the way he handled crises at work. But this wasn't a breach in a contract or a PR emergency. This was a girl, his daughter. He closed his phone and looked at her again. Do you want something to eat? He asked, voice softer now. She hesitated, then nodded. Pancakes? It was past midnight. Pancakes were not part of the plan. But he moved to the fridge anyway. I'll try, he muttered. 10 minutes later, Ethan Blake, the man who once addressed the United Nations on digital ethics, was standing barefoot in his penthouse kitchen, flipping slightly burned pancakes in a designer skillet. Lily giggled when one landed folded in half. It's okay, she said. Mom used to burn them too. Ethan smiled, surprised at how natural that felt. They ate together at the counter. She told him about her school in Chicago, how she liked math, how she didn't like gym, how her teacher let her stay in the library during lunch sometimes. She mentioned Rachel only in passing, with a reverence that made Ethan ache. How did you find me? He finally asked. Google, she replied. I searched your name and saw you were having a party today. The article had the hotel name. He leaned back slightly. A small pause. You traveled here? Alone? She nodded. Bus and train. He almost asked how, why, who let her. But the answer was in her eyes. She had no one else. He walked over to a cabinet, pulled out a tablet, and sat beside her. Do you want to show me your favorite book? She lit up. Yes. In minutes, she was curled beside him, narrating the plot of a series involving time-traveling sisters. He didn't understand most of it, but her energy was magnetic, her voice rising and falling as she flipped pages and pointed at hand-drawn maps. He wasn't used to this. To presence that wasn't strategic or measured. It was late when she finally dozed off, head resting against his arm. Ethan didn't move. He stared out at the skyline, holding still. The city blinked beneath them. Millions of lives, none of them aware that his had just split into two timelines. The life he planned, and the one that had walked into a ballroom holding a cupcake. The next morning, he walked her down to the hotel's rooftop garden, a hidden space few guests even knew existed. Lily spun in circles, arms stretched wide, the sun catching in her hair. She picked flowers from a planter and tucked one behind his ear. You look funny, she giggled. I feel funny, he admitted. A soft breeze passed between them. He called for breakfast on the terrace. Fruit, toast, fresh juice. Lily tried everything, then mixed orange juice with syrup just to see what would happen. They spent an hour like that. No emails, no spreadsheets, no calls. Just two people discovering how strange and simple it could be to share a morning. Later, when Ethan checked his phone, a message from his lawyer blinked on the screen. "The documents are authentic. We should talk custody." He looked at Lily, who was now lying in the grass, drawing clouds with her fingers. Not a deal to be negotiated. Not a problem to be fixed. A life. His next move wouldn't be in a boardroom. It would be here. Right here. With her. Ethan didn't sleep the following night. He sat in his study surrounded by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves he rarely touched, rereading Rachel's letter under the dim glow of a desk lamp. Her handwriting was soft and rounded, but the words were weighted with fear and urgency. She had written about Lily's favorite meals, the lullabies she used to sing, her allergy to peanuts, and her stubborn refusal to sleep without a nightlight. Ethan paused when he read that last part. Lily hadn't asked for a light. She hadn't asked for anything. The realization hit him with unsettling force. She wasn't here demanding a father. She was asking if she could stay. The following morning he brought Lily to a child psychologist, a discreet professional his assistant had vetted. Ethan watched from behind a mirrored window as Lily colored a garden while answering questions with careful honesty. "I don't like loud noises," she said at one point, "and I get scared when it's quiet too long." That night, back in the penthouse, she sat on the couch reading aloud while Ethan responded to emails, or tried to. He couldn't focus. Each sentence she read pulled his attention away from financial reports and toward the quiet miracle beside him. But not everyone saw her that way. Within days, the media caught wind of the story. Ethan's PR team intercepted questions from tabloids speculating about secret daughters, unacknowledged heirs, and scandals hidden behind cream-colored suits. Investors grew nervous. Shareholders wanted statements. A few board members asked if the situation would be a distraction. His assistant, Mara, cornered him after a meeting. "You need to either confirm custody or have her placed with a guardian," she said bluntly. "This limbo isn't good for her, or for you." He dismissed her with a polite nod, but her words echoed later that night as he watched Lily sleep, curled into a blanket on the couch again, even though her room was fully furnished now, complete with fairy lights and a small tent in the corner. Ethan realized she didn't trust that the room was really hers. She was still waiting to be sent away. The real conflict wasn't external. It wasn't the headlines or the boardroom. It was inside Ethan. For the first time in his adult life, he was staring at a decision that couldn't be scheduled or delegated. Did he want to be a father? Not just say he was. Be one. He hadn't asked for this. He'd spent his whole life building an empire to avoid vulnerability. But now, vulnerability had a name and slept on his couch and giggled at his burned pancakes. And it was terrifying. That Friday, Ethan brought Lily to a quiet neighborhood in Pasadena. They parked in front of a modest house with a blue porch swing. It was Rachel's childhood home, empty since her passing, and Ethan had tracked down the keys through her old landlord. Lily walked through the rooms in silence. She found a dusty jewelry box on a shelf and opened it slowly. "My mom used to let me play dress-up with this," she said. "Only when I was extra careful." In the bedroom, Ethan noticed faded marks on the wall, height measurements, drawn in crayon. Lily stood beside them and pressed her back to the wall without being asked. "Still not taller than last time," she whispered. Ethan didn't respond. He couldn't. His throat locked. Back at the car, she clutched the jewelry box in her lap, holding it like it might vanish. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I'm glad you came. I wanted you to see it." "Why?" "So you'd know she was real." He blinked. Rachel had never chased him, never contacted him. She'd lived a quiet life, raising Lily alone. And now Lily was asking for nothing but acknowledgement. Proof that her mother had mattered. That she mattered. That night, as they returned to the penthouse, Ethan told Mara to cancel his weekend meetings. He disconnected from his devices. No screens, no emails. Just him and Lily. They cooked together, or tried to. Pasta ended up undercooked, and tomato sauce landed on the marble floor. They watched old cartoons. Lily built a pillow fort and made him crawl inside. He did, grumbling, then laughed when she put a paper crown on his head and dubbed him Pancake King of the West. He felt ridiculous. He felt alive. And still, the decision loomed. Not if he could be a father, but how. Because once he told her she could stay, it would be forever. Ethan's world had always been linear. Problems, strategies, solutions. But with Lily, there were no timelines. No board to impress. Just moments, small, fragile, unquantifiable. And with each passing day, those moments accumulated into something harder to define. Responsibility, affection, fear. The first sub-crack in his armor came from an unexpected place. His sister. Claire Blake, a pediatric oncologist living in Seattle, hadn't spoken to Ethan in over 2 years. Their last interaction had ended with a slammed door and a tense silence over differing life choices. Claire had accused him of prioritizing success over people. He'd told her emotions were inefficient. Now, with Lily asleep in the guest room, Ethan found himself calling her. "Do you remember Rachel Collins?" he asked after the initial awkward hellos. A pause. "Vaguely. Chicago, right? She had a daughter. Her name's Lily. She's mine." Another silence. "And she's with you?" Claire asked cautiously. "Yes. She's staying here." "Temporarily?" He hesitated. "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Claire didn't press. Instead, she said softly, "I'd like to meet her." That weekend, Claire flew down. Lily was shy at first, observing from behind Ethan's legs. But Claire had a natural warmth. She brought puzzles, asked questions, and let Lily answer on her own terms. In the quiet moments, she watched Ethan closely. "You're different," she said when they were alone. "I don't know what I'm doing," he admitted. "No parent does. The ones who say they do are lying." The visit reopened something between them, a bridge that had been burned but not destroyed. They spoke late into the night about their childhood, about their mother's strength and their father's absence, and about the weight of becoming something you never expected to be. Meanwhile, another thread unraveled quietly. Mara, his assistant, had always been loyal, sharp, efficient, almost telepathic in anticipating his needs. But Ethan began missing meetings. He rescheduled briefings for ballet recitals and parent-teacher calls. He started saying no to investors and later to board chairs. The shift didn't go unnoticed. One afternoon, she confronted him with a file in her hands. Projections, forecasts, warnings. "You're drifting," she said. "And they're starting to notice." Ethan looked up from where he sat. Lily's drawings pinned on the bulletin board behind him. "Let them notice," he replied. Mara's tone softened. "You're not wrong for choosing this. I just don't want you to lose everything else in the process." It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. She wasn't just protecting his career. She was reminding him of the cost of imbalance. Ethan knew then that he couldn't simply swap one life for another. He had to rebuild both to coexist. And Lily, she wasn't a side plot. She was the center. Her school enrollment had its challenges. Ethan insisted on privacy, security, discretion. But Lily just wanted to belong. She wanted to bring a paper lunch, wear glittery shoes, and make friends who didn't know her last name trended on Twitter. He tried. He really tried. He attended her school orientation, awkwardly towering among soccer moms and chatty dads. He raised his hand during a Q&A and asked about cybersecurity protocols, earning several confused stares and one gentle laugh from Lily. "Just say you're my uncle next time," she teased later. "You were so intense." Ethan smiled. It was becoming easier. One evening, after Lily fell asleep, he opened a journal Claire had given him. Not digital, not sleek, just paper and ink. He wrote, "Day 21. I learned how to braid hair today. Badly. But she said it didn't hurt. She said I'm learning. And I think I am." Then he closed the book and sat in silence, watching the hallway that led to her room. Because this wasn't about temporary adjustments or emotional detours. This was becoming a life. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Ethan had just returned from picking Lily up from school. She was in the kitchen, pouring apple juice with intense concentration, while he answered a number he didn't recognize. "This is Amanda Brooks," the voice said. "I'm Rachel Collins' cousin. I live in Denver. I just found out what happened." Ethan stepped away from the kitchen, heart tightening. "I didn't know Rachel had any living relatives," he said carefully. "She didn't talk to most of us, but I loved her," Amanda said. "I saw a news article about Lily, about you." Silence stretched. "I want to see her," Amanda said finally, "and I want to talk about custody." Ethan felt the word like a punch. Custody. He hadn't thought he was in a battle. Until now. Amanda flew to LA that weekend. She was in her early 40s, composed, polite, clearly nervous. Lily met her with polite distance, holding Ethan's hand tightly. They spent the afternoon together at a public park. Amanda brought photos of Rachel as a teenager, stories Ethan had never heard, about summers spent camping in Colorado, about Rachel's fear of thunderstorms, about how she used to braid Amanda's hair. Lily listened quietly, but her eyes kept drifting to Ethan. Later that night, Amanda asked to speak privately. "She's incredible," Amanda said. "Rachel would have been proud." Ethan nodded once. "She is." Amanda looked down at her hands. "I live in a quiet suburb. I have a stable job, a husband, 2 kids. We've got a backyard and a dog. I'm not rich, but I know how to raise children. I've raised children." Ethan didn't reply. "I know this world of yours is big, but is it right for her?" Ethan clenched his jaw. "You don't know her the way I do." Amanda hesitated. "Maybe not, but I knew her mother, and I'm part of her family. That matters." It did, legally, emotionally, logically. He felt something unravel inside. That night, Lily sensed it. She didn't ask, but she sat closer than usual during dinner. When he tucked her in, she whispered, "Do you have to go somewhere tomorrow?" "No," he said. "I'll be here." Her grip on his hand tightened. "Do I?" That stopped him cold. He sat beside her on the edge of the bed. "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "I just feel like everyone goes away eventually." He swallowed. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Promise?" He hesitated for a heartbeat too long. She noticed. The next morning, Claire called. "She has a case," Claire said plainly. "Amanda, if this goes to court, she could win. You're not married, you've never raised a child, and Lily's technically extended family to her." Ethan stared at the wall, expressionless. "You're saying I could lose her?" "I'm saying," Claire said gently, "you need to fight if you want to keep her." He hadn't realized it would come to this. But maybe he should have. He took Lily out of school for the day. They drove up the coast, windows down, wind in their hair. No lawyers, no decisions. Just freedom. They stopped at a beach near Big Sur, barefoot in the sand. Lily found seashells and named each one. Ethan watched her draw hearts in the wet sand with a stick, then write her name beneath them. After a while, she sat beside him. "Are you sad?" she asked. "A little? Because of that lady?" He didn't lie. Yes. Lily leaned against his arm. She's nice, she said. But I don't want to live with her. Ethan turned toward her, heart pounding. Why not? Because she didn't come find me. You did. He closed his eyes, overwhelmed. The tide washed away the hearts and names they'd drawn, but something deeper had rooted itself between them. Back in the city, Ethan called his lawyer. I want to file for permanent custody, he said. Whatever it takes. Are you sure? The lawyer asked. Once we start this, it becomes public. I don't care. And Amanda? I'll speak with her. But Lily's not a case. She's my daughter, and I'm not letting her go. When Ethan met Amanda the next day, he was calm but resolute. She loves you, Amanda said, and I love her. Amanda studied his face for a long time. I'm not here to make this harder. I came because I thought she might need someone. But maybe she already found him. She handed him a small envelope. These were Rachel's. She wanted Lily to have them. Inside were photos, letters, a worn-out notebook. Rachel's handwriting filled the pages. Ethan looked up. Thank you. Amanda smiled softly. Tell her she can visit us any time. Then she left. That night, Ethan read one of Rachel's notes aloud to Lily. She leaned against him and whispered, Am I just visiting? He took her hand, kissed her forehead, and said what he now knew with complete certainty. No, this is your home now. The decision to pursue permanent custody reshaped everything. Ethan's once perfectly orchestrated world began to bend and adapt. Meetings were rescheduled around school pickups. Emails were answered after bedtime stories. The penthouse, once a shrine to order and silence, now echoed with laughter, clumsy footsteps, and the occasional impromptu dance party in pajamas. Publicly, the press reaction was mixed. Some called it a redemption arc. Others speculated about image manipulation. But Ethan didn't give statements. He didn't need to. For the first time in years, his actions were louder than any brand campaign. At home, Lily began changing too. She started calling his penthouse our place. Her drawings filled the refrigerator. She began referring to Ethan as my dad during video calls with Claire. And slowly, the distance between the guest room and her bedroom disappeared. She slept there now every night, with the door slightly ajar, just enough so she could hear his footsteps. But not everything settled smoothly. One afternoon, Lily came home from school unusually quiet. Ethan noticed right away the lack of chatter, the tight grip on her backpack. What happened? He asked gently. She shrugged. A kid said I was just staying with you until someone better came. His heart sank. I told them I wasn't going anywhere, she added, eyes fixed on the floor. You're not, he said firmly. She nodded, but her voice cracked. What if they're right? What if someone changes their mind? Ethan knelt beside her. Look at me, he said. You're not a temporary part of my life. You are the part that matters most. Nothing will change that, no matter what anyone says. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't speak, just launched forward and hugged him tight. In that moment, Ethan understood something new. Reassurance wasn't a one-time gesture. It was a promise he'd have to show, again and again, until she could believe it without asking. At the office, things weren't as forgiving. Several investors expressed concern over Ethan's diminished availability. Some hinted at restructuring. One board member asked directly if he planned to step down. Ethan responded with a single line in the quarterly meeting. I didn't build this company to become a machine, and I'm not sacrificing my daughter for your margins. The room went silent. Later, his assistant approached, offering an envelope. Inside was a card, hand-drawn by Lily, addressed to Miss Mara, with a glittery heart on the front. She wanted to thank you, Ethan explained. Mara smiled, slightly emotional. She's winning all of us over. Good, he replied. That's what she does. As weeks passed, Ethan and Lily developed rhythms. Brushing teeth to music, Saturday pancakes, less burned now, Sunday walks through the park. He taught her how to tie a tie. She taught him how to French braid, poorly but lovingly. Claire visited more often. She brought board games and science kits, and Lily adored her. One night while Ethan cooked, Claire pulled him aside. "You've changed," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "For better?" "For real," she replied. It meant more than she knew. Still, there were hard moments. Lily had nightmares. She cried sometimes without knowing why. She asked Ethan questions he didn't always have answers to. About death, about memory, about whether her mom could still see her somehow. He never pretended to have it all figured out. He just stayed close, and that made all the difference. The day the court finalized custody, Ethan didn't celebrate with champagne or headlines. He simply picked Lily up from school, held her hand a little tighter, and told her quietly, "We made it official." Her eyes lit up. "So I'm really yours?" "You always were." That night, they baked a cake together. It sank in the middle, and the frosting was too sweet. But they ate every bite. Because it wasn't about perfection. It was about presence, about showing up again and again until love didn't feel fragile anymore. The seasons began to shift. By late spring, Ethan Blake's world looked nothing like it had a year ago. His mornings began not with emails but with Lily, packing lunches, checking homework, tying shoes. The man who once lived by alarm clocks and calendar alerts now navigated ponytails and misplaced sneakers with the same intensity he used to reserve for corporate negotiations. It wasn't easy. Parenting wasn't a system he could optimize. There were no algorithms for bedtime meltdowns or spontaneous questions like, "Why do grown-ups lie?" Or, "What if my mom forgets what I look like?" But Ethan was learning. He no longer panicked at emotion. He didn't flinch at vulnerability. He faced each messy moment with presence instead of performance. And Lily blossomed in return. She joined the school choir, something Rachel once loved, and invited Ethan to her first concert. He sat in the front row, his phone off, a flower in hand. When she spotted him in the audience, her grin nearly cracked her face in half. Afterward, she ran into his arms and whispered, "Did you hear me?" "Loud and clear," he said, voice thick. "You were perfect." He meant it. Not pitch perfect. Not polished. Just perfect. Outside of home, Ethan made changes that surprised everyone. He stepped down as CEO of his company. The decision stunned the board. Investors panicked. The press speculated endlessly. But Ethan didn't care. He issued a single, heartfelt statement. "I built something extraordinary. But now, I want to build something even greater. A life that matters, not just a name that impresses." He appointed a successor he trusted. Then he took a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding for 10 years. With time freed, he began to volunteer. Not in performative ways, but quietly. He supported a foundation for single mothers in Chicago in Rachel's name. He donated anonymously to children's hospitals. He mentored young founders, teaching them that success without balance wasn't success at all. But perhaps the most transformative work he did was at home. One Sunday, Lily asked if she could paint her bedroom wall. Ethan hesitated. The walls were pristine, designer chosen. Then he said, "What color?" She chose sky blue, and they painted it together. Messily, sloppily, joyfully. By the end, both were covered in streaks of color. But the room looked like hers. Lived in. Loved. Claire visited that summer and found a completely different brother. "You laugh more now," she said over coffee. "I used to think laughter was a distraction. And now? Now I think it's fuel." She smiled. "I like this version of you." "I like him too," he admitted. That night, Ethan tucked Lily into bed and she asked, "Do you miss your old job?" He thought about it, about the status, the rush, the control. "Sometimes," he said honestly, "but not more than I love being your dad." She smiled, satisfied, and turned to sleep. Ethan stayed a while watching her breathe. Small, steady, peaceful. There had been a time when he thought success would protect him from pain, from chaos, from need. But Lily had shattered that illusion and shown him something better. She had made him human again. The true test came later that fall. Lily was diagnosed with a mild autoimmune condition. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough to require routine checkups, dietary adjustments, and occasional medication. Old Ethan would have delegated it, hired experts, outsourced the fear. New Ethan went to every appointment, learned the science, asked questions, stayed up late researching. He kept snacks in the car, scheduled alarms for pills, sat with her during blood draws, holding her hand as she squeezed her eyes shut. One day, she looked at him and said, "You don't have to do all this, you know." "I know," he replied, "but I want to." She studied him for a long time, then nodded. "I believe you." It was the highest honor he'd ever received. By winter, their rhythm had become something sacred. They celebrated the holidays with their own traditions: handmade ornaments, mismatched cookies, movie marathons in pajamas. Ethan no longer needed to be perfect. He just needed to show up. He'd built the kind of life Rachel would have wanted for Lily. Not just safe and structured, but full of warmth and wonder. And he'd built the kind of man he never imagined he could become. Not flawless, just real, just enough. The end of the school year brought with it a rush of change: report cards, recitals, summer plans. For Ethan and Lily, it was the first time they experienced these milestones together. Every paper Lily brought home felt like a medal. Every drawing she taped to the fridge was framed in Ethan's mind. But there was one project that stood out: a school assignment titled My Hero. Lily had worked on it in secret. She handed it to him on a rainy Thursday evening, cheeks red with nervous pride. "I hope it's okay," she said. "I picked you." Ethan unfolded the paper slowly. The drawing showed a man in a too-big crown holding a stack of burnt pancakes with a little girl laughing beside him. The caption read, "My hero isn't perfect, but he's mine." He didn't speak for several seconds. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. "You picked me?" he asked. "You stayed," she said simply. That moment, small and quiet, planted something new in Ethan. Pride, yes, but also urgency, responsibility. He realized there was still more he wanted to give her. More stability, more certainty, more roots. He'd spent the past year transforming the inside of their lives. Now he wanted to anchor it in something solid. So he began to search for a house. Not just any property, a real home. With a yard, a tree, a sidewalk for bikes. Somewhere Lily could grow into her teenage years without feeling like she was borrowing space. After weeks of private viewings and long drives, they found it. A two-story craftsman house on a quiet street in Pasadena. White picket fence, lemon tree in the yard. An attic Lily called mystical, and a porch swing Claire immediately claimed during her next visit. When Ethan showed her the keys, Lily blinked. "You bought it?" "For us." "But I thought you liked the penthouse." "I like you more." She hugged him so tightly he nearly dropped the keys. The move itself was messy and beautiful. Boxes mislabeled, furniture misplaced. Lily chose the smallest room. "Coziest," she said, and painted it lavender with streaks of yellow stars. She helped Ethan build bookshelves and insisted they make a secret hideout under the stairs. Claire flew down again. Together, the three of them planted wildflowers in the backyard, while Lily explained how pollination worked. It was becoming a life filled with rhythm, purpose, color. but change always stirs memory. One evening after dinner, Lily asked if they could visit her mother's grave. They hadn't been since the custody decision. Ethan had quietly avoided the subject, afraid of saying the wrong thing. But Lily's voice was clear, and he knew it was time. They drove to Chicago the following weekend. Lily picked the flowers herself. White lilies and sunflowers. They stood together in the quiet cemetery, hand in hand. Ethan had prepared a small letter but hadn't known if he'd be able to read it. He didn't have to. Lily stepped forward, crouched beside the gravestone, and whispered, "I'm okay, Mom. He's really good at pancakes now." Ethan smiled through tears. Before leaving, Lily placed her "My Hero" drawing inside a plastic sleeve and tucked it beneath a small stone by the grave. She'd want to see it, she said. On the drive home, Ethan didn't talk much. He just held her hand as she slept. Back in Pasadena, life resumed. Steadier now, fuller. The house became their haven. Saturday mornings were filled with waffles and music. Lily made friends on the block. She joined a science club. She gave Claire a permanent drawer in her room. And Ethan? He started writing. Not for work, not for press, just for Lily. He wrote her stories, notes, letters for the future. Because even though the worst was behind them, he knew life would bring new questions, new fears, new trials. But she wouldn't face them alone. Not ever again. It happened on a Friday. Ethan had just finished packing Lily's lunch, turkey sandwich, sliced apples, and a small note folded into her napkin, when he received a call from the school. "Mr. Blake, there's been an incident." His heart dropped. Lily had fainted during gym class. The teacher caught her before she hit the ground. An ambulance had been called as a precaution, but she was stable. By the time Ethan arrived at the hospital, she was already awake, cheeks pale, IV in her arm. Her small fingers fidgeted with the edge of the blanket. She smiled weakly when she saw him. "Sorry," she whispered. "I scared them." "You scared me too," he said, taking her hand. The doctors ran tests for hours. The autoimmune condition, manageable until now, had flared suddenly. Her immune system was attacking healthy tissue, likely triggered by a virus she hadn't even noticed. Ethan stayed at her bedside through every poke, every monitor beep, every wave of silent fear. At one point, she turned to him and asked, "Am I going to be okay?" He didn't lie. "Yes, but we'll have to take better care. Of everything. Together." She nodded, eyes glassy. "I'm glad it happened when you were already mine." That broke him. He leaned in, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "I was always yours. I just didn't know it yet." Over the next 2 days, she improved. Slowly, carefully. Claire flew in, sat with her during blood draws, made jokes about hospital food, and reassured Ethan when his hands trembled, signing consent forms. "You're doing great," she said. "She's not scared because she knows she's safe." But Ethan wasn't feeling safe. He was angry. At himself, at the world, at the fragility of it all. That night, alone in the hospital cafeteria, he reread Rachel's old letter for the 100th time. Even if it's just for a few days, take care of her. Let her know she matters. He had, but now he wanted more than that. He wanted permanence. He wanted security. And in that moment, he knew what he had to do next. The next week, after Lily was discharged, Ethan began working on a new foundation, not just in Rachel's name, but in Lily's. A nonprofit dedicated to supporting single-parent children with chronic conditions. He poured resources into it, not to distract from Lily's needs, but to amplify them. To build something that would outlast him. Lily sat beside him during meetings. She drew logos, picked out colors. She wanted purple. "It's strong and soft," she said. "Like Mom." But one night she asked something unexpected. "Would you still want me if I got worse?" Ethan stopped mid-step. Why would you ask that? Because sick people are hard. He crouched down. You're not hard, you're brave. And being sick doesn't change who you are. But it changes stuff, she said. Like plans. And people. Ethan thought of Rachel. Of himself, once terrified of disruption. He took a deep breath. Yes, it changes things. But not how much I love you. Not how much I want you. Lily blinked, then threw her arms around him. I want to believe that forever, she whispered. You don't have to believe it alone, he said. I'll remind you every day. The real turning point came in the smallest moment. A week later, Ethan picked her up from a school workshop. She ran into his arms holding a certificate. Kindest listener. She said I ask really good questions, Lily beamed. I think it's because you do. Ethan didn't speak. In that instant, he realized something profound. He hadn't just saved her. She had saved him too. He hadn't merely filled the role of father. He had become one. Not by force, by choice, by presence, by staying. That night after dinner, Lily climbed into his lap with a notebook in hand. I'm writing you a letter, she announced. Oh yeah? What for? In case one day I forget how lucky I am. He smiled. I'll help you remember. No, she said. You already do. Then she handed him a blank page and said, Now you write one for me. So he did. In messy handwriting and imperfect words, he wrote what he'd never said out loud. That loving her made him better. That she had given his life shape and light. And that no matter what came next, she would never face it alone again. And when she fell asleep that night, curled beside him under a blanket of stars painted on her bedroom ceiling, Ethan knew with complete clarity. This was the life he'd been waiting for. He just hadn't known it until she showed up with a cupcake and a quiet truth. You're my dad. A year passed. The wildflowers they'd planted in the backyard now reached Lily's knees. The lemon tree bore its first fruit. The porch swing creaked with a familiar rhythm each evening as Ethan and Lily sat together, often without words, letting the breeze carry the silence. Life had found its shape. Lily thrived, not just academically, but emotionally. She laughed louder now, hugged tighter. Her room was filled with books, drawings, and a growing collection of hairbands and glittery socks. The nightmares came less often. The questions, though still deep, carried less fear. Ethan had learned to answer them with patience. He was no longer the Ethan Blake who measured success in market shares or headlines. His days began with breakfast messes and ended with bedtime stories. He wore fewer suits, smiled more, and had become an expert at making blueberry pancakes without burning them. Claire visited often. She brought puzzles, new books, and gentle reminders that growth was not always loud. Sometimes it whispered through ordinary days. She and Ethan had mended the distance between them, one honest conversation at a time. The nonprofit they launched, the Lily Project, had already provided support to hundreds of families. But for Ethan, the real impact wasn't in the metrics. It was in the letters. The ones sent by single parents who no longer felt alone. By children who saw themselves in Lily's story. And through it all, Lily remained his compass. One sunny afternoon, while helping him clean the garage, she found a dusty box labeled Old Life. Inside were Ethan's awards, plaques, media features, relics of the man he used to be. Lily pulled out a magazine with his face on the cover. "You look serious," she giggled. "I was serious," he said, smiling. "Do you miss it?" He thought for a second, then shook his head. "Not really." She handed him the photo. "Can I keep it?" "Why?" "Because it's part of the story, yours and mine." He nodded. That evening, she placed the photo in her room, beside a newer picture. One of them at the beach, wind-blown and laughing. Two versions of the same man. One who had everything and felt empty, and one who gave everything and felt whole. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Happy almost birthday, Dad." Ethan smiled, heart full. He didn't need a party this year. He already had the greatest gift of his life, sitting right beside him. On the morning of his next birthday, Ethan woke to the sound of footsteps and quiet giggles. Lily stood at the foot of his bed, holding a tray. A slightly lopsided pancake, a glass of juice, and one simple cupcake with a single candle. "Happy birthday, Dad," she said, eyes bright. He sat up, overwhelmed. Then he noticed the card beneath the plate. Hand-drawn hearts and one sentence in careful writing. "You're still my hero." Ethan didn't need gifts or parties or applause. He had love. And for the first time in his life, he truly knew what it meant to be celebrated.